My name's Kim Cobb. I'm a teacher at Selkirk Montessori School in Victoria, BC. I'm also on the board of directors with Young Global Citizens. Before we start, I'd like to just take a moment and acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today from the traditional territories of the Lekwungen people, today known as the Esquimalt and Songhees Nation, and I extend my appreciation for the opportunity to live and learn on this territory. Before we start, I have my school principal, Erinne Hayes, to introduce our special guest today.
So welcome everybody. It is wonderful to see the variety of schools here, and thank you to Kim for organizing this for our school and with Erinne. Erinne's a former graduate of Selkirk Montessori. We're a school that goes up to grade 8, and when she left us in grade 8, we knew we would be following Erinne's path from a distance for a long, long time, because we knew she'd be doing exciting things right from high school all the way through, and she has not disappointed us. There's been books published, one of which I have here, so a series of books published. I think that was right after graduating high school, those started to be published, or maybe even before then. She was an activist right from her time in high school, where she was proposing new ideas and starting new activities and clubs, but also was really good at stepping up and supporting others in their ideas, and really understood both sides of leadership, of leading from out front and leading from within. She was also exceptionally good at honing her leadership skills, understanding that a leader is not someone who dominates, but a leader is someone who inspires and includes and looks for opportunities. And those are skills that need to be honed over time. So we are so excited to see her now working across the world, and to see, after she's traveled across Canada to go to university, that she didn't stop her vision there. So very excited to hear her talk today, and lovely to see your face back as part of our community. Erinne, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for that very kind introduction, Erinne.
Erinne, do you have anything you'd like to say before we begin with the questions?
No, nothing really. Just that I'm very excited to be here, especially to see everyone from Selkirk Montessori, because it does feel like I was just there so recently, but I guess I really wasn't now. Now I'm 24. I just turned 24 last week. So it has been a while, but I recognize all of the classrooms and many of the faces. So yes, very exciting.
Great. Okay, we're going to start with our first question. When I introduce your school, if you could make sure that you unmute yourself and speak up. You could also introduce yourself as well. The first question is from Selkirk Montessori, the Kingfisher community.
Okay. How did you get involved in this type of activism, and what advice would you give us?
Yeah, so I think the very first cause that I kind of got into was environmental activism, because I remember that I started learning about environmental causes, and I realized how big of a deal it was, and I was just starting to go to high school. And in my high school in Victoria, there were a lot of little things that I was able to do. Well, not little, but more hands-on things. So for instance, they had like a recycling program, and they still do, and they have a community garden and all these things that were designed to help the environment that I was able to get involved in right away. And at first I was thinking, this isn't enough. This is such a big cause, such a big issue. But I realized as I started to do these smaller things that it was contributing to this bigger cause, and that it was very rewarding to do them, and that I could learn more as I did them. And at the time, I don't even think I had an iPhone. I didn't get one until I was 14 or 15. So it wasn't really social media activism that I was involved in at first. But I will say that I think now the most exciting thing is that when you do these small things, or things that you might think are small, you can so easily see the bigger impact through social media. You can look up how this might be contributing to bigger causes, and also connect with people from all around the world that are doing these more local things, and see how it all connects better. So that's how I first got involved. And I'll talk about maybe other things of advice later on too, but I think the main thing is to get involved with local things at first and learn more through those activities.
Thank you. Robert Adams Middle School, Holliston, Massachusetts in the US.
Hello, Erin. Can you hear me? Hi, my name is Cynthia Texera, and I'm a French immersion teacher at Robert Adams Middle School. And my student, Sarah Eppinger, is going to be asking you a question in French first and then in English, as we are a French immersion school. So, vas-y, Sarah.
Si vous pouvez changer une chose qui pourrait avoir un vrai impact sur les droits de la femme, ça serait quoi exactement? And then in English, it's if you would change one thing that would have an impact on women's rights, what would it be?
Thank you for the question. And great French. They speak Dutch here in Amsterdam, and I do not know any of it. I really need to learn. So I think if I could change one thing in particular with women's rights, I think it would be to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to education. Because when women are able to be educated, it allows them to be able to contribute to society, to the greater world, to stay safe, to have the career they want to have, to contribute in all of these different ways. And so being able to get educated is not just a single thing, but it leads to all of these different changes that can happen. So I think that's number one. And also because I was thinking about this, that the number one thing is that then more women leaders can be elected in politics, can be elected or chosen to lead in different ways. And it's even been proven that when there's more female leadership in political positions, that there is more peaceful decisions being made. And so equality in an educational setting could then lead to equality in all of these other settings too. So I think that's where it all kind of begins.
Thank you.
Merci.
Selkirk Montessori Cormorant class.
Hi, I'm Lucy. Being a compassionate and caring person, how do you manage your emotions and continue seeing the positives? Do you have any advice for people experiencing anxiety?
That's a really good question, especially right now, because with the pandemic and everything, it's really easy to kind of be overwhelmed. And I think when I think about the very first issue that I talked about, environmental issues, I was really, really passionate about this when I was like a lot younger, when I first got into high school. And then I started to get very, very overwhelmed. And I think largely because when I care about something or even someone, I feel like a lot of emotions and I feel like I am going through what I'm learning about. So when I learned about environmental issues, I was like, oh my gosh, there's nothing I could ever do to make this better, and was very overwhelmed. So I think the number one thing is to kind of talk about it with other people. Talk about it with like friends or teachers or family that care about these issues. And by talking about it, you can create kind of more support for yourself, but also with any kind of mental health things or feeling overwhelmed, it's always good to be able to talk about it in a safe space. And I think the other thing is focusing on how the littler impacts can make a difference. Because even in a person-to-person interaction, when you say something nice to someone and that makes a difference in their day, you never know the kind of ripple effects that that can make. So I think staying aware that even smaller things can impact other people really positively. And if you don't really believe that, you can also think about how little things have impacted you a lot. So think about, something that made you feel really happy or supported, and how much maybe a small action that you do can then lead to someone feeling that way as well. So I think those would be my biggest tips. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Cormorant class. Strathcona School in Vancouver, BC.
Hi, I have Theo here that will ask the question to Erin. Thank you very much for having us.
Hello. How do you think we can make a difference and have our voices heard?
Thank you for your question. I like the lights in your classroom. They're so circular. I think that one of the most important things about making an impact is understanding and using your own unique perspective. So what I mean about that is that understanding how something impacts you personally, but also how your own perspective impacts how you see things. So when you understand what your perspective is, how you're seeing an issue, but also how that might differ from someone else, you can understand like what your exact role is in something. And even like we are all part of all of these different systems that create both inequality and equality in our world. And so when you understand when it's your specific perspective, then you can understand what your role might be in that cause. So I think it's kind of similar too with what other Erinne said in the beginning, that when you're leading, it's not always your time or your space to have your voice heard in a way. It might be your time or your space to support others. I can see someone is saying something. To support others. So I think when you understand your own perspective, that's how you're going to have the most impact with having your position in a cause, whether that be activism or otherwise, be heard and be impactful. And then the other more specific thing I would say is that on social media, if you follow activists that are part of causes that you care about, oftentimes they'll have hashtag campaigns or live videos or things that invite you to participate in. And I think that can be a really great opportunity for you to experiment with that kind of unique perspective and see where you fit into certain social movements.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Strathcona School, Tom Thompson School in Burlington, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Ben, and my question is, when you wore your math homework to grad, why did you choose to donate your money to the Malala Fund?
Thank you. There's a few different reasons, but I had heard about Malala much before then because she had been in the news and everything with her fight for women's education. But the thing that was most interesting to me was that Malala is exactly my age, and she also likes to write, and she also cares about women's education. And she just seemed so similar to me, like someone I could easily be friends with. And yet I had gone to school every day without thinking twice about it. And she had gone to school and been shot in the head for trying to go to school as a girl. And so for me, I think that made it more clear to me what my perspective is in the movement of women's rights. That for me, I am very privileged in that movement because I got to go to school without thinking twice about it. So I think the reason that I had chosen to donate to the Malala Fund was because I wanted the other people also in my high school to take the moment where we graduate and go to prom to also be really appreciative of how lucky we were and how privileged we were to have gotten these opportunities to go to school and for free. And so I think by comparing myself to someone who is so similar, it kind of showed the inequalities. So that was why I chose the Malala Fund. And then also I wanted to donate because then I was able to hopefully contribute to other girls my age, and again, similar to me, to have the same opportunity that I had. So that's why I chose to donate to the Malala Fund.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Selkirk Montessori C-Star class.
As young global citizens, we are learning about what it means to be a global citizen and about the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. If you could interview one person in the world that is making an impact towards reaching these goals, who would it be, why, and what is one question you would ask them? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I would choose one of the founding members of the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't know which one, but one of them, either Alicia, Patrice, or Opal. And the reason for that is because I think with how I was saying that it's important to reflect on your own perspective within a movement, for me, a lot of what that has involved is understanding what it means that I am a white person in all of these different movements. Because when you think about what is called intersectional feminism. For me, it's been really important to understand my role in more of an intersectional approach to feminism. So what that means is that when you talk about feminism, you can't understand it without understanding that lots of different types of inequalities interact with one another. So, for instance, me and a woman who is Black would not have the same opportunities because the woman who is Black would be discriminated against doubly, potentially, because she is both Black and a woman. But I would be discriminated against because I'm a woman, but I'm white. So in that way, I would be privileged in society. And that's something that I didn't really learn about in high school at all, but I started to learn more about in university. And it's something that I always need to learn more about. And I know that with the Black Lives Matter movement, there has been a lot of work to stand up against police brutality towards Black people. And there's lots more that I can learn about an intersectional approach. So I know that if I had a conversation with one of the founders of that movement, that we would be able to talk about that more. And I don't know necessarily a specific question, but I would definitely want to talk about, too, the topic of how they have used social media to make their movement such a huge global movement, and how they have used hashtags to spread their message. So that's what I would talk about with them.
Thank you, Selkirk. McDonald School, Stockholm, Saskatchewan.
Hi, I'm Haley from McDonald School, Stockholm, Saskatchewan. And our class recently watched The Social Dilemma. What advice would you have for teenagers to help them balance their social media use in healthy ways?
That is a very good question. I also watched that documentary. It's really good, but also kind of scary. So I would say that I think the most important thing is not necessarily to say, oh, don't use social media as much, because obviously it's always good to have a balance, and everybody knows that, and we try to the best we can. But the most important thing is also understanding what your information that you're putting online is doing. So what it is being used for and how it is being used. And that just involves a lot of learning and researching and detective work. So I would say one thing that's really cool to do is to do what I call a data walk. And essentially what it is that throughout one day, you keep track of every single time you use social media and what you are doing on it and what information you're giving to what company. Like you keep track in maybe a journal or something. And then afterwards, try to research as much as you can where that information is going. You could even create like a kind of map where that data has been walking, and try to understand what that information is doing. Because I don't think it's so much about not using it or avoiding it, because it is literally a part of every single part of our lives. And so removing yourself from that is not necessarily that helpful. I mean, obviously, I also, as I said, didn't have an iPhone until I was 15 or 16. So I don't really know what it's like to use social media earlier than that. So I can't really comment on that. And I think obviously you have to stay safe online. And I'm sure that there are lots of other issues that happen there, but I think knowing where your information goes is the most important thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Wild Spirit Education in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Okay. Our question is, the 3 pop activism books you wrote are geared towards people our age. Your last book came out in 2019, and the website was last updated in 2018. Do you intend to continue your work as a pop activism, or continue your work with pop activism, or are you moving in a new direction? How do you intend to continue your work as an activist?
Thank you for that question. It's a very investigative journalist question. I like it. But I would say, so right now I'm doing my master's degree in Amsterdam, and I am learning a lot. As I said, I've been trying to learn in my university years where my voice fits into all these different movements. And also I am actually studying basically social media activism, but from this more critical perspective. So the social dilemma would be a perfect example of the type of thing that I'm studying at university. So definitely my plan is to write another pop activism book, but from this more critical perspective. So kind of more about data and online privacy, things like that. So I am definitely working on that. But I also am actually teaching in the university a little bit, which is very fun. And also, learning and writing. I also want to write for a little bit older, like people in their 20s, about social media use. But that is what I am working on. But definitely at least one more is my hope.
Erinne, we are publishing a book of our own called Coast to Coast, How Kids Came Together During the Pandemic to Help the Planet. And any proceeds of the book are going to clean water access for Indigenous communities in Canada. Would you be willing for us to add a contribution from you in the book for the kids to enjoy? We would like it if you could ask your publisher's permission to reproduce a few paragraphs from one of your books. Either can your smartphone change the world or can your outfit change the world? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. I want to hear more about this project. That's very, very exciting. But of course, yes, I will definitely ask, and maybe you can email me with more information afterwards. But that sounds like a very exciting project. Very cool.
Thank you. And Aaron agreed to do one final question for us. A school in Versailles, France, emailed us a question about a day ago, and Aaron was gracious to give us this. So I'm going to ask the question. If you were part of a time capsule, what would you put in for future citizens to see?
Yes, thank you. I think if I was part of a time capsule, and actually, I think I was part of a time capsule at Selkirk Montessori, and I do not remember if we ever opened it up or not, but I remember putting everything in. Oh, we haven't opened it up. Okay. Yes, I have a very strong memory of that. I think that I would put in, maybe it's very fitting, but probably an iPhone with information in it. Information about how it feels to be alive right now and where the world is at right now. I don't know if you've ever seen an old iPhone, but these things change very fast, and it would be both interesting to look at the technology itself, but also the stories and information of people in it. So maybe it's a bit of a cheater answer, but I think that would be my time capsule item.
Thank you. Aaron, you've been incredibly gracious to join us today and answer questions from students across Canada and the world. You've agreed to give the opportunity for the students to grow their communication, confidence, and thinking skills, and will make a huge difference in their role as young activists. Do you have any final words of wisdom you would like to share with our students and teachers today?
I think one thing is that when I was a lot younger, back to the overwhelmed question, I was very, very anxious about all of these things, and I really enjoyed acting on them. And I think that, that things can be very overwhelming when you first get involved in them, but also that when you get involved in causes that you care about, you end up connecting with such amazing people. And so even if things feel very overwhelming when you start to get involved, know that you're going to meet other people that are just as passionate as you about causes, and that they will teach you so many amazing things. And the things, as I said, that would make me kind of anxious, like whether it's issues or whether it was traveling or exploring or anything, are the things that then connected me to people all around the world. And now I'm living in Europe, and I'm learning about these things at a university, and I've made friends from all over the world. And so even if things feel overwhelming, know that you're going to meet people that also care about these things. And by meeting them, you will together make a huge difference. So that would be my last word. And also that you can always follow me on social media or send me an email. I am very available and around. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you. So I'm just going to plug Erinne's 3 books. My students have really enjoyed reading them. We have the smartphone, the math homework that she wore, How Does Your Outfit Change the World? And Can Conversations Change the World? They are amazing books for our students to read. Erinne, we hope you can accept this honorary title of Young Global Citizen, and that we look forward to seeing how you're going to continue to change our world. One of the last thing we like to do is we like everyone to unmute themselves and say thank you to Erinne. So if all the schools would like to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erinne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.